Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Stroke. I am a stroke survivor and your host, Jerry Wall. For those of you that are new, please subscribe to my YouTube channel called Let's Talk Stroke. But also, I started doing this to bring awareness to stroke, TBI, aphasia, really brain injury, and also to provide a platform for survivors so they can share their journeys. This morning, we're going to kind of update um, you for on our with strokes and anything that's been going on with us. So please make comments, ask questions, and I'll bring on Tara Evans and Jerry Chapman, and we do have another guest that will be on shortly. So sit back and ask questions. Thank you. I didn't mumble that too much. Tara, nice to see you, and Jerry, nice to see you as well. And awesome. And hopefully you guys can see the comments. And Tara, I don't know, we can start with any updates for you. You had your stroke on an airplane. I mean,
I did.
can you imagine?
On
Wow.
March 11th
Yeah.
of last year. So I'm just a little shy. What is that? 15 months.
Yeah.
I've had two strokes.
Yeah.
I had a stroke on an airplane, right occipital stroke. So that was definitely an experience. I would say the best experience it could have been. I had some of the best passengers that I could have had on that airplane. I had three doctors and an
Now
ER
we're on the airplane.
that was on the
Who knew?
airplane.
Wow, it's crazy because we shared your story on a previous show.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I mean, three doctors. What's the odds of that?
Well, I think that I was extremely fortunate and blessed. Surprisingly, I didn't find out until a few days. I say a few days. I really don't know, to be honest with you. But the lady that held my hand the entire time, I knew as Rachel, was actually Dr. Morris. Never presented herself as a doctor. She actually started my IV on the airplane and kept me calm the entire time. I recall having the sensation of just not feeling well. Almost this, I have a memory of if I could just get to my bag and get that Atkins snack, I'll be okay. And the next thing I know, I could hear last known well 12:30. And of course, I knew as a nurse, as an ER nurse, that's not good. Last
Yeah.
known well 12:30, but didn't know. Um, it just didn't register. And I know now that I had gotten up from my seat and walked to the back of the airplane. Thankfully, I had fallen where Rachel, Dr. Morris, um, and her husband, who is also a physician, were sitting, and there was an interventional radiologist on the airplane, and I had lost my sight completely. That did not register with me. I remember at one time or a moment, they asked me for my passwords to get into my phone and my iPad. And I couldn't, I was not able to give them that information. And I realized, wow, I'm a 47-year-old woman, extremely active, no medical history. I've never been sick. What is going on? And I guess in that moment, I realized this is really this is really taking place.
Yeah, it's really serious.
I'm sure you're lying right there, because there's no way you look 45 years old.
Yeah.
So I'd say about 27 or something.
Let me take the glasses off. I have a few wrinkles.
And you have to wear those, or
I do. So I call these my stroke glasses. The lenses are prisms.
Yeah, I'll take them.
Yeah,
do you?
and they help to rewire my brain.
Wow.
And they've just been amazing. I've for 15 months, I think that I have definitely defied the odds. There are times, I'll give you an example. Brian and I, my fiance, were out eating, I believe, this past weekend. And I also work as a deputy coroner for 5 years.
You do? Oh, I didn't know that.
I did.
Wow. Deputy.
Up until about, I believe, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I hustled for a while. I was a single mother, and my boys like nice things, and we're very active and extremely active. And, those things cost money. And
Canadian money didn't do it for you?
Sir?
I've been here for a few years now. Never heard of you. I've had a couple bucks. Canadian money should do it for you there. So,
I hear you, Jerry.
well, obviously not loud enough, because you're still there.
Because I'm still here.
I'm teasing you, of course.
Yeah. How you doing? How you doing since? Have you noticed more recovery since your stroke?
I think that I'm doing remarkably well. There are things like, the other day, there were 2 people that walked in, and I noticed they were in uniform and it said CSI. And it kind of took me, it really kind of took me by surprise. I couldn't connect the dots, and I said CSI, and it took me about 10 minutes. And Brian said, take a deep breath. I could not recall what that
Acronym is, yeah.
And I finally recalled crime scene investigator. But I sat there and had to really take a minute. I had to slowly just tell myself it's okay. So things that once just, came to me so quickly, or I didn't even have to think, well, what is that? Things that you never even would have to say, wait a minute, what is that? Took me about 10 minutes to recall. So sometimes it's a humbling experience.
Yeah. And emotionally, how you do?
Absolutely. And that's my struggle. But in those moments, you have to give yourself grace, you know. And then also, it's not just, I think, stroke, you have to realize, and there's not enough emphasis on it. You kind of, it's like you have a stroke, okay, you're okay, bye, you're out the door.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have realized, and there's such a commonality. One of the things, and I won't say the name because I know I shared this with you because I didn't think that I was going to be able to pop on here today.
Right.
Someone reached out to me and asked me about my glasses. And we started talking yesterday. And one of the things that she said to me is, and I've said this too, I believe on the show, we look like we're okay.
Oh, yeah.
You can't see what's inside, right?
Yeah, it's an invisible disease.
Exactly. You can't see how I feel, right?
Yes.
And so I immediately told her about your show and about the dedication that you have dedicated your life to the stroke community, which is just phenomenal. I cannot applaud you enough because it's needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I was telling my therapist, I was telling my therapist on Monday, it's like when I came upon the show, I found my people.
Yeah. Someone like me.
Right?
Yeah. Even Jerry.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you.
But also, like, the commonality is there's not enough focus on the emotional aspect that we deal with, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But another thing is that it doesn't just affect us, it affects our family, the people that take care of us, whether that's our spouse, significant other, our caregivers, our children. You know, that's one thing that kind of connected me with Musong is that disconnect and him trying to reconnect with his children. And I know that he's a little bit further out than I am, but you know, you hear other people's stories and you immediately connect and you can feel that emotion, you know?
Yeah.
So shows like this are so important because even though I'm returning to work today, which I think is really going to feed my soul.
Oh, yeah. That's great.
There are so many people that don't have anyone. Things like this show will at least be a resource where there's a connection with someone, you know, because not every day is going to be a day where you feel depressed, down. Hopefully you'll have a day where you feel encouraged. But there are those days where you just feel down.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to be able to have that connection with somebody.
Yeah, exactly. How do you feel about that, Jerry?
I'm just getting my hand up. When you had your,
waiting for you to say something.
I didn't want to interrupt such a beautiful person like yourself, but when you had your second stroke, okay, did you know you were having it right away, the second stroke?
So that's a really good question. And that's part of why I think I struggle with my emotions so bad. So when I had my first stroke, I went to University Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore. And the neurology team that took care of me, when I say that they took care of me and saved my life, they were phenomenal. And I live in Mississippi. And so when I got back home, unfortunately, when I had my second stroke, the hospital that I went to failed to identify my second stroke. And it's really hard for me as a nurse to be on the other side
I was just going to ask you.
as a patient.
I was just going to ask you if when you're back at work as a nurse in any section, and you came upon a person that's just having his first stroke right there, you think you could recognize it?
So that's another interesting question and a great question, because I'll tell you what happened. I completely lost my identity. When you have a frontal lobe stroke, so your frontal lobe controls your identity, your personality. I became impulsive, aggressive. I was even aggressive in the hospital.
Aggressive how? Were you going around beating people up or?
Well, I will tell you that one of my best friends and coworkers begged one of the nurses to get help for me. I was very ugly to that nurse. I threatened to basically beat her up.
Yes.
Personality.
I said that out loud. That's right.
Which I don't think I've ever done. I was the one at work that I'm sorry, I broke my fingernail, so I'm paranoid about that this morning. I was the one that would always fix everything at work, so that is completely opposite of my personality. And help never came, and that is a very hard pill for me to swallow. So when I was finally discharged from that hospital, I was discharged with no diagnosis, with normal findings. And as time progressed, I got more aggressive. And when I say aggressive, or maybe not really aggressive, I knew in my mind, like I didn't have a filter.
Yeah.
So I would know in my head, do not say that, but it would come out anyway. And I was abrasive. I was extremely impulsive, just completely opposite. And it would kill me. I was on the brink of, it was a very slippery slope. I was suicidal. Just because I was unrecognizable to myself.
yourself.
I was physically, and I wrote about this in my journaling. It was like walking in a circle, unplugging my emotions from the outlets. And at the time, I was going either to therapy or a doctor Monday through Thursday of each week, because at the time, I had developed stress-induced cardiomyopathy. Like everything that could have gone wrong with me at the time of my initial stroke did. And not that it's anyone's fault, and of course nobody knew, but the radiologist at that second hospital when I had my second stroke just failed to identify it on the MRI scan. And of course, I had my CT first and then my MRI. But when you're so far out of your norm, your normal personality, and when you tell somebody, like I told that nurse that I was wild, and I had never been wild before. You don't threaten to beat somebody up.
Yeah.
And use the language that I was using that normally wouldn't come out of my mouth. I was always told, give yourself grace. And I was basically telling these people, like, textbook what a frontal lobe stroke was, but nobody listened. So basically I went into my neurologist's office. It was the second time he had seen me. And I walked in and was my attitude was horrible. And he picked up on it. And
the attitude?
My attitude was horrible. And I was so over it. Just the way I felt, like it was like I would look in the mirror and I could not see myself. Like I did not recognize myself. I looked at myself. I'm sorry. I looked at myself, but I could not see myself in my reflection.
Is that just because of the attitude?
Because of everything.
Wow.
Everything.
How far from the stroke did you realize that?
It didn't take long. Maybe this was at the end of, I had my second stroke. I was hospitalized on March 26th. So only a short time from my first stroke. And when I went to my neurologist the second time, I believe it was in late June. And so he called me like 2 or 3 days after that second visit. And he called me and Brian, and he said, because he was so taken aback. He was like, he looked at Brian and he was like, what is wrong with her? And I thought in my head, why are you looking at I was not myself.
Yeah, it's a common thing about the depression and anxiety when you have it.
Right. And I can remember telling him, I was like, do you really want to know? Do you really want to know what's wrong with me? Because I have been begging for help. I mean, I talk to him like that, and that's just not who I am.
Yeah.
You know, I was a loving person. And I can remember telling him, I had a stroke on an airplane
Just incredible.
and was blind.
Right.
And
Is that why you were in the prisons? Because you couldn't see?
well, these are to rewire my brain. And they've helped me tremendously. I mean, just I was a mess. You would be just amazed. But I can remember sitting there and telling him my complete story. And I was like, imagine having a stroke on an airplane, not being able to see. I was asleep. I can remember I said, I was asleep on the airplane. God woke me up. God woke me up on the airplane so I could receive my tenactoplasm. And I have no feeling of gratitude.
Yeah.
Now let that sit with you for a minute and marinate. Something is wrong. That's not right. And so he called me back and told me, he went back to those hospital records at the outside hospital and called me and Brian and said, you're right. You had a stroke. You had a left frontal lobe stroke and they missed it.
That's just amazing.
And I had been living in hell for all those months, and just he put that piece that was missing. And so it gave me a sense of he was able to put that missing piece that I was so desperately needing.
Right. Do you feel, I bet, or maybe a question for everyone, do you feel when you are discharged from the hospital that you're prepared to go out in the world and make things happen? Maybe everybody can answer that one, because for me, no. When I get discharged, my family didn't know what to do. I mean, they never.
No.
And that was and just here's the paper and practice this or something. That's it. Stephen, you were going to say that, or?
Well, I just said heck no.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not prepared. Jerry, did you think you were prepared?
I don't know what I was prepared for. My emotions were definitely upset and angry.
Oh yeah.
I've been feeling sorry for myself, but I was very, very angry. And I had a come to Jesus moment. And he, and he just said, you could have lost a bit more than you've lost. You're doing okay.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
And Terry, were you prepared?
No.
Doesn't sound like it from what
No.
we're talking about.
No, I
don't-
wasn't.
Any way to prepare.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
How was that?
No.
I don't think there's any way to prepare for it because you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah,
we're making it up as we go along from day one.
Yeah.
No.
were you seeing your boyfriend now when you had your second stroke?
Me?
Yes.
Yes, we've actually yes, I was. We have been together for 4.5 years.
I wasn't trying to be a smart aleck or anything.
No. And I'm so thankful. I would have lost everything if it had not been for him, because I had savings, but I went through my savings because
I was going to ask, like, how did he react first of all?
He's been great, you know, but that's the thing about it. You know, I have, you know, I have to tell myself in maybe 10 years, you know, I'll look back and I'll be like, okay, whew. But, you know, there was no GoFundMe. There's no disability. There's no, which, you know, there's nothing set in place for moments like this. You know, if it had not been for Brian and his mother, you know, my brother, there's very little support.
So you had no kids or anything, right?
I have kids. My oldest is 23, but he's still here with us.
Yeah.
He just graduated from nursing school.
No way. Good
That's
for
awesome.
him.
What
Two
did
weeks ago.
That's awesome. What did he think when you had your stroke? I mean, I know my family, it was so scary.
Well, like I said, it's the stroke was not just something that impacted me. It affects the entire family.
Yeah. Did you lose any friends out of it? Because this is something that I think we all, right? Did you lose friends? I mean,
Yes. I have, yes. You know, it's funny because you would think that your friends would understand. I had a few moments where I kind of lost my temper.
Well, that's hard to believe after talking to you.
yeah, it is hard.
When I was really sick, and one thing that I'm really thankful for is before my strokes, it was hard for me to take accountability. It was like I was real sassy before my strokes too, and that's coming back.
Really?
Oh yeah.
There you go. The terror's on our way back, thank God. There
Yeah.
you go.
Back in the saddle here. And I know, Stephen, you didn't lose anybody.
To my knowledge, no, I didn't lose anybody. I mean, I've got a lot of friends, you know, from 30, 40 years ago that they live too far away now, so they can't be apart. But I've gotten closer with other friends that still live in the area.
Yeah, that's good.
The guy's 6'6". Would you tell him anything negative? No, I wouldn't. So,
Oh well, my one friend I've gotten closer with since all this, when he came to the hospital to visit me, you know, he walked in saying, "Get off your ass." You know, he's never treated me any different than before.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. You need friends like that. You need
Yep.
friends like that. But
there's a lady present, and he's swearing his butt off. Way to go, Stephen. That boy. So,
But you know, I think that it's good when you see the people that will stick with you and the people that won't. And I've realized too that maybe, or at least I've tried to tell myself that maybe it's just too hard for them to see you in certain situations. And maybe that's just a coping mechanism for me to get through this time. But I have apologized for my slip ups, you know, because when I was sick, and I say I was sick, you know, I was brain sick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I call it. I've taken accountability for those times. I've apologized for those moments. To everybody except one person. And I have tried to make amends. And that's all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
why apologize for something you had no control over?
Well,
And if the people don't understand it, you know, then I'm saying this as nice as I can, and screw them.
I've asked myself that too.
You never thought of it that way. That's
I've asked myself that question too. And I'm not sure. I don't have a good answer.
That's okay.
You know, I don't have a good answer.
You don't need one. Just know that you can help the situation,
Yeah.
right? And they're messing with you if they're saying, "Well, you were like this." Well, excuse me. It's like every other normal body function. Things screw up now and then.
Yeah.
If they're not much of a friend, if they come on to you, right? Could be a problem why I don't have many friends right now. Just
well, we're your friends.
thank goodness.
yeah. That made so many more. Right. That's a good. Good.
Come on down, Jerry. I'll fire up the grill and pull a cold one out of the fridge.
Like you didn't have to bring Steven into this. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
Why you don't have to be sorry. Just you're busy with other emotions, such as why me,
Well,
and all other stuff.
I think too, I wanted to open up a dialogue and try to explain. Of course, the one person that I haven't been able to make amends is a nurse. And I would have thought that there would have been more understanding.
The one you talked about earlier?
Yes.
What did you do to her again? You didn't punch her or nothing.
No. No. I raised my voice. And it was after I just tried to say I wasn't ready to talk.
Yeah.
After a few times. And one of the things that bothered me a lot is noise, and noise could be several things. It could be after I asked to not text me multiple times, like I'm not ready to see you, or I'm not ready to talk, or and you continuously text 25 times. And I say that lovingly. I'm not.
Yeah, leave me alone lovingly. I like that one.
Honestly, I'm not trying to be mean, but noise comes in several different forms. And at that time, I could be distracted by several different things.
Yeah.
And it was just anything and everything bothered me. And
Did you have vocal problems too after your stroke?
did I have what now?
Vocal problems? Did you talk very well?
I could. What was so funny is I sounded like my grandmother. Everybody said that I sounded like my grandmother, which I loved so much. I talked very softly, slowly. I did have some initial issues, but that resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I
only say that because I had problems with my eyes. I had the prisms. I saw double, right? And
Yeah.
Jerry's wishing I didn't have this problem now, but I could hardly talk, right? And it lasted for about 6 months, and it came back by itself. So I just asked him.
I have nystagmus and double vision. And I'm really supposed to be wearing these glasses all the time. And I do generally.
Are you still driving?
No, I'm not driving at all. That's my next big goal.
You'll do it, because I didn't have a choice. My doctor just, took my license away. I was a truck driver.
Yes, I heard you last time.
I needed my license, but no, I felt that was the time I really was angry, because I felt you guys being what's the word?
Kind of bullied.
Punished.
Yeah.
Well, like I was being punished for, again, something that I didn't start, right? But that's when I say you don't have to be sorry for acting the way you do when you have a stroke.
Yeah, the emotions alone are just so.
Yeah.
Right, Steve? I mean.
Well, at first, I was a bit of a mess emotionally. I mean, I was never known for my patience to begin with, but while I was in the hospital, there's 2 doctors that pissed me off. I mean, like that. I mean, one doctor, he kept telling me that the cigarettes was what caused the strokes. And I immediately thought he's just grabbing at the lowest hanging fruit and saying that's what it is, because smoking causes everything. I've never pretended it was good for me, but he kept doing that. He kept telling me that was the cause, and that nicotine would create arterial or venual spasms, and that's what caused the stroke. But then every time he'd visit me to check on me, he'd offer me nicotine patches, nicotine gum, whatever. I mean, hindsight tells me he was trying to keep me from having withdrawal.
Oh, okay.
But it really pissed me off for a second there, because I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me nicotine caused all this? Are you trying to kill me because you're offering me nicotine?
I don't think they know exactly what causes strokes, because I've said before, I was a heavy drinker, but there's people around 100 years old still smoking and drinking. And
there's so many variables.
Yeah, and so
that's true.
I'll get you and Tara on my side. We'll go up and we'll cause some crap up there. Tell them to get your feet on the street. I think you'd join me, wouldn't you, Tara? Just,
yeah.
Good.
Well, I know Tara.
I smoked until the day that I had my first stroke.
Wow. Okay.
And were you affected by anything beforehand, like coughing or anything?
No.
Well, tell the people who said that, just tell them they're wrong and go away and leave you alone. It'll spark up one or two.
I was perfectly healthy. I smoked, and I love to drink wine.
There you go. White or red?
Red.
It's okay.
And now I don't do really either one. I'll have a glass of wine every once in a while.
It's back. Somebody was trying to call me on
But
Messenger.
I woke up one day in the hospital when I was in Maryland.
Yeah, while I was trying to log in.
Now he's logged up.
No.
See, Steve. All right, you're upset, Steve.
And it dawned on me. I said, I haven't smoked. And I haven't smoked since.
Wow.
Just didn't have the urge to smoke then.
It was the oddest thing. I guess about a few months after I had my initial stroke, I had this craving. And
then you also said something about God, and I'm a person of faith, and so I have no problem with that. But
yes.
Pay attention, Steve. Quit trying to respond to the other person. But either way, I mean, anytime in like all the different stroke support groups and stuff online, someone mentions God, somebody else will chime in saying God must be evil to allow something like this to happen. And I try to tell them it's the event itself is not evil. It sucks. It's not fun, but it's not evil. The evil comes afterwards. The evil comes later on in that little voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. You're a burden. That's what comes later on. And that's hard. It's hard to not listen to when you don't even feel like you can sit up. That's just my opinion.
Well, and I agree with you. And that's one thing I'll tell you. I can remember.
Well, you are.
I remember, and I'll chime in. That's one thing, when I always want to say Rachel, but I want to give her credit because she worked so hard to become a doctor. I can remember being on that airplane and not knowing, what was going to happen, and telling her, you kind of have to be in the moment. And of course, this is from my perspective. I could have been completely panicking. I don't remember having any panic. And I don't remember panic around me. And I pray that there wasn't.
Well, you know why there's no panic? Because obviously God was around you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I can recall, saying, I want to go to a comprehensive stroke center. This is what because I recall giving her Brian's information, telling her, please tell Brian, that I love him. Thank you. Please let him know that, thank him for the life that he gave me, the boys, my brother, this is what I want. If I have a quality of life, but if I don't, this is what I want. I can remember all that. And I can recall asking her for prayer and praying for everyone involved in my care, blessing their ability, their hands. And she asked me what my faith was. And I said, I'm a Christian. But in that moment, I can recall, I went back and I said, but I love all people, because it was so important for me in that moment that everybody in that plane knew that everybody was loved. Because there is such a negative connotation, So that's, going back to what Steve said. I think that a lot of times people automatically think with God, not trying to bring that in, but sometimes I think, that's something that we struggle in our house too. Of course, not me. I think that it's easy sometimes for people sometimes, and I do understand it. It is human to just, when you get down, to just think, why did God allow this to happen? But God is a loving God. Things just happen, and they do. Things just happen. And sometimes we go through things, we don't always have the answers for it.
Not necessarily a punishment, like you said. God, he's not a punishment type guy. It's a test, right? Sometimes things are tests. How are you going to get through this professing your love for God, saying everything is really hunky dory now, and we'll just try something like this and see if she really starts cursing me or she's praising me. It's a test to him, and he's always, you're always being watched, and you can come on to me about that. It's no problem. I'll talk about this till the sun goes down. I got Bibles stacked up to here, so I'd love to talk to you about this sometime if you're interested.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I'm learning. When I was a little girl, I could tell y'all everything about in the Bible, and I've always been in the church, but I find that as a young adult, and now I'm not a young adult, I'm almost 50, I'm 48 years old, but I don't know my Bible as well, but now I'm learning more, but everybody's different. Everybody interprets different. I find that it's an opportunity, to learn more. But I do feel like my strokes and my purpose is for God to use me to share my story.
Okay, like a beacon type thing. You want to start. You want to praise him and thank him for your strokes and your recovery so far, and what you intend to do right now about it.
And I'll be the first one to tell you that my days are not always good.
Yeah.
I think all of us like that. Did you ever feel like, because I know I did, is I felt like when I woke up, I felt like not going to make it. So I had to accept that I will not make it. And I kept thinking of the family, what's going on. I thought
Right.
this is it. And that was a scary thing. But I came to grips that I'm okay with going.
Right. Yes.
But now I have a passion for what I'm doing now. I thought I had my passion from my previous life, but now I'm good. I'm okay now with it.
Yes.
I may not walk good and can't move the right hand so well, and but
For sure.
Yeah. So it's been good, but I know a lot of people that are new, kind of, they're not okay with it.
Right.
But times heal.
And that's so important that you say that, because like when we were talking before we hopped on, I'm on a new trajectory in my life. I'm so fortunate. Now, I don't think that Linda would mind me sharing this, but I reached out to Linda McKnight, who is the CEO of Burn Foundation of America. Her and Steve, who are in Augusta, Georgia. And, I reached out and said, hey, do you have anything in the Jackson market? And she emailed me back and she was like, I'm going to be there next week. And this was a couple of weeks ago. And her and Steve have just been amazing. And, I can't recall exactly what she said to me, the number of years, but I met with her a couple of weeks ago, and I'm actually meeting with her this afternoon. But when we sat down, I had completely prepared myself because I'm a very honest person. And, there's days that if I sleep really good, I'm pretty sharp when I wake up. And there's other days, if I don't sleep so good, I'm kind of foggy.
Yeah.
And so I said, I've known Linda for years. And I said, I'm going to have to be really honest with her. And so we sat down, and she started talking to me, and she said, I've had a number of people that I've lost in my life from stroke. And I was just completely blown away. And I thought, okay, God, I hear you. And so I just looked at her and I said, Linda, I came here with full intention of being completely transparent and honest with you. And I guess what's been going on for the last 14 months of my life. And she was like, yeah, I know a little bit. And I said, well, I don't know. I had, talked myself into trying really hard not to cry. But now that you shared that with me, and of course, I kept things together, but I was so touched that she thought so much of me. That meant so much because people just don't operate like that in the business world.
Right.
And it meant the world to me, and said so much to me. I've always thought that she was amazing. Her and Steve have just set the tone, and have prepared a place for me that is safe and that I know that I can be successful. And so I'm just excited. It's
a great opportunity.
Like you said, yeah.
Absolutely, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, any other last words? I know it's written about time. I mean, we could be doing this for a long time. But any last, what's that? Stephen sent me a message saying, tell him thank you. He, both of you had some technical difficulties, but it's all good. We'll be doing this again. But any last words from you, Tara, or Mr. Chapman?
I always can talk.
No, we enjoyed having you on the show today, Tara.
Yes, we did.
I'm glad I got to see both of you.
Absolutely, yeah. And have a great your new day of work.
Thank you.
What do you think? Is it an 8-hour day, or is it going to be
no, I don't think it'll be an 8-hour day. I'm going to give her a call in just a second and see what's going on, and go from there. So, but I just wanted to say thank you to both of y'all. And this has just been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for me to be able to hop on here and talk to you guys. And
as well.
Yeah.
Anytime you want to talk to somebody and Jerry Wald's not around, just Facebook me. I'm happy to talk to you.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Well, it was great to have you on, and we will be doing it again.
Yeah.
You guys take care.
Yes, so we want to hear about your first day.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah,
nice.
we'll talk soon.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you. We will talk later, and thanks everybody who's been
Bye,
commenting and stuff. So thank you, and we'll talk again.
Okay.